It's the world that I've lived in, and I've kind of had to embrace it. A long time ago, I thought about even my name, Jedediah. You know, you introduce yourselves, and people will already know that there's some religious context to the name and everything. So right now, I'm just kind of going with it. I'm embracing it. That is the world that I grew up in. So as ridiculous as it is,
Yeah.
you know.
It is what it is. You know, what can you make of it? I'm the grandson of the head of the Branham Tabernacle, and I've came to just embrace it. It is what it is. I wish it were not that way, but that's what it is. But
Yeah.
anyway, thank you. We're detangling the International House of Prayer, and you've joined us as the co-host to help further detangle the mess. And Brantley's done a good job leading up to this point, so I'm very glad to have you on here to help with this.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm excited to be on here and appreciate everything you do. And so I appreciate being on this series.
Awesome. Well, the synergy is unbelievable. This morning I was thinking about this podcast, and we actually did not talk about beforehand what we were going to speak on today. And this song came into my head from a band you've probably never heard of, but the Cathedrals Quartet, which is Southern gospel music. That's what we were all raised on in the Branham cults. And I was thinking about this song. They've got this song called "This Old House," and it's about a person who is, got a broken down house that needs fixing up, and they could fix it up. But the theme of the song is, I'm not going to fix it up because I don't need this house, because the end of the world is here. And I was just thinking of how horrific that is. It is doctrinally, it's just, it takes a person where it makes them of no use to this earth. They don't care about anything. They don't care if the house is broken down. That is a song that was one of my favorite songs. And I was in that attitude growing up, man. It was the end of the world. The rapture was coming.
Mm-hmm.
We don't care for tomorrow, don't care for today, what tomorrow may bring.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of themes, those were all embedded in the sermons that we listened to. And I grew up just not caring about the world. And raising my children, I have a different perspective now because I'm no longer in this. And I want them to care. I want them to think about the future, and the choices they make today affect the future generations. So just thinking of the balance of that. And then I asked you what we're going to talk about, and you're talking about the apocalyptic cult today. And I mean, it just fits. It's the same exact thing repeated over and over through time.
Yeah. And I think that the reason why I wanted to talk about it is I think that it's something that can be forgotten when talking about some of these organizations, or at least be minimized, because obviously there are some very large scandals and sexual abuse scandals. And I think that for a secular world, or a world that's outside of these communities, that's easier to latch onto because it's easier to understand some of that. But understanding prophetic, apocalyptic, what it's like to be raised in that community or be a part of that community, that's more difficult for people to empathize and understand. And if you were a part of the community that was an apocalyptic community and you're out of it, that's something that's easy to forget or not talk about. Sometimes I'll talk with my sisters about those elements of it, and it feels foreign when you're looking back upon your childhood or your early adulthood and thinking about how, I really thought in my lifetime Jesus was gonna come back, split the sky, be riding on a horse, and that there was going to be a battle. You might have believed that the good Christians would be raptured before the tribulation, but at the International House of Prayer, we were taught that that is not the case, that it is post-tribulation rapture, and that in fact we would be there to see all of the atrocities. So I would read the Left Behind books, you know, the whole Left Behind series. I would read all of that, and the big difference is that the Christians would be there for all of the crazy things that went on, and it whether whether I would like to admit it or not at times, that shaped not only my childhood, but shapes who I am today and the way that I think about the world, and how I've had to unlearn and contextualize a lot of my own quest for meaning, for value, for work, for my relationships, all of that. The way that I grew up, everything was oriented around the end of the world, and that is always going to affect me throughout my entire life.
Absolutely. And there's a lot to unpack there. If you are a Christian and you're just curious about International House of Prayer and you're listening, you ask the question, well, doesn't every Christian believe Jesus is coming back? I have seen that in the comment feeds from people who don't understand the complexities of what it is we're talking about, because most Christians do believe in a return of Jesus Christ. And what you mentioned, pre-tribulation rapture, post-tribulation rapture, I try not to get caught up in that, because when you're dealing with a doomsday cult, it doesn't matter the order of events. Your mindset is still focused on doomsday. And in the Branhamism, there was a change in the end times theology that happened after Branham died and leading up to the International House of Prayer. Branham, like every doomsday cult leader, they believed that their small group was the special ones, the elite of the Christians. And they did believe in a pre-tribulation rapture for those Christians, but they believed by and large the rest of the Christians would go through the tribulations and suffer, and all the end time battles that were being fought in IHOP. They believe that. So it actually falls within the same realm of theology. The difference is we considered ourselves to be the elite, and we would consider you to be the inferior Christians who fought the battles. So there's that. But like I said, I try not to get caught up in that, because for a child growing up in it, I think it's different than an adult who joins later in life. Our frame of reference as a child growing up in this is always that there's a doomsday. That's always the elephant in the room. Whereas, I've talked with members who came in later. They were probably in the cult for about 10 years, 15 years. They had a different frame of reference, and so their foundation thought of the world as a place that they could make better. Whereas I didn't care if the world was better or not.